What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we are here for another poetry discussion, which will appear in the poetry discussion playlist, approaching 600 poems strong. Today's poem is My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. It is a monologue poem, and it reads as such. This comes from Ferrara. That's my last Duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder now. Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Will't please you to sit and look at her, I said. Fra Pandolf by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance. But to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you but I, and seemed as if they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there. So, not the first, are you to turn and ask thus, sir? 'Twas not her husband's presence daily called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek, perhaps, Fra Pandolf chanced to say. Her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half flush that dies along her throat. Such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad. Too easily impressed, she liked whatever she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Sir, 'twas all one, my favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west. Pardon me. The bow of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush at least. She thanked men good, but thanks somehow, I know not, I not no, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of 900 years old name with anybody's gift. Who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such a one, and say just this, or that you disgusts me. Here you miss, or there exceed the mark. And if she let herself be lessened so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, even then would something stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This grew, I gave commands. Then all smiles stopped together. There she stands as if alive. Will't please you rise? We'll meet the company below. Then, I repeat, the Count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed. Though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed, at starting is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir. Notice Neptune, though taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which claws of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. Now, this is often sort of railed against. This poem is often sort of railed against as someone who is controlling and is transferring, if I can use the term, which we will get into a little bit later, his his love, his possession, one, onto the wall in a painting, but two, onto someone else, the next Duchess, perhaps. The irony here is that the presentation of this painting is sort of off-putting, right? This is an obsession over a previous Duchess, which is off-putting to the potential next Duchess. So we have to call into question the use of last. Last can mean previous. Last can mean final. What are we to do here if we are the next potential Duchess being presented this painting? So there is a term from psychoanalysis with Freud that is transference. And this is taken from the Wikipedia article on the this is the Wikipedia entry. This is taken from the Wikipedia entry on transference as presented to us in psychoanalysis. It is common for people to transfer feelings about their parents to their partners or children. That is, cross-generational entanglements. Pardon me. Another example of transference would be a person mistrusting somebody who resembles an ex-spouse in manners, voice, or external appearance while being overly compliant to someone who resembles a childhood friend. In The Psychology of Transference, Carl Jung states that with the transference dyad, both participants typically experience a variety of opposites, that in love and in psychological growth, the key to success is the ability to endure the tension of the opposites without abandoning the process, and that this tension allows one to grow and transform, not to hold prior relationships against the person with whom you are currently, quote unquote, entangled. The struggle of this, apparently, comes from the fact that in your brain, there is one center for what we call basically love. And you learn that idea in childhood with your parents. So oftentimes you see someone who will sort of side with one parent or another in their own actions. And in their relationships, they will sort of cast the other person in that opposite role. This is to say, you have perhaps one loving parent, one abusive parent. You will become the loving parent and seek out someone to abuse you. Or you will side with the abusive parent because you don't want to be the one that gets hurt, and you will seek out the loving spouse, the spouse that will overlook all sorts of untrustworthy or you will seek out someone who will accept your untrustworthy behavior or someone who will succumb to your own abuses. That's sort of what this poem is getting at, is that the person presenting the painting is searching out someone to be that other Duchess and to succumb to his possessive will. Now, this is strange because it manifests in a lot of relationships. It doesn't have to be a loving relationship. If you become that abusive person, you will abuse, or it doesn't have to be abusive, right? It can be all sorts of behaviors. It can be just sort of you become the mean person that you witnessed in childhood. It doesn't necessarily have to be abusive. It could be neglectful. It could be just sort of not treating people well. There's all sorts of levels to this. But the poem in itself, the monologue, presents this idea of a person who is in an ironic trap without that partner, but still with some bit of idolatry towards them. Here, it's a painting. It could be, you see this all the time with people who have convinced themselves that they are worthy of a treatment. And they seek out those relationships, not just in their loving relationships. They will transform it. The way I kind of think about it is a level of comfort. It doesn't have to be a loving relationship. It can be a level of comfort with someone. where you seek out that type of behavior from yourself and from the other person. Work relationships, all sorts of relationships, friendships. And it all stems from the fact that what we know as love is a specific thing in our brain. What the healthy thing that this article from Wikipedia is saying that the psychoanalysts sort of preach towards is that this idea of love has to be healthy, should be non-transferable, should be something that springs up from the relationship itself. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really helps me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, there's poetry on the channel every Monday, and I hope to have you back for the next one.